The cold vacuum of space held its breath as a small deep space mining vessel, named the Endeavour, drifted further from Earth's orbit, with its crew unaware of the discovery that would forever change humanity's fate. At first the mission seemed like any other, a routine search for rare minerals. In the far reaches of the asteroid belt, the crew of 5 scientists and engineers had spent weeks mining resources from the floating rocks. But that day was different. As they approached an uncharted sector, a faint signal appeared on their scanners, barely registering as an anomaly. They had been trained for strange readings, yet nothing could have prepared them for what they found. As the signal grew stronger, it was clear this was no ordinary find. The captain of the Endeavour called out to the crew, his voice filled with a sense of disbelief. The readings didn't make sense. The pattern was too regular, too artificial for it to be natural. A search protocol was initiated, and the ship slowly veered off course, heading toward the source of the strange signal. As they neared the object, it began to take shape on their screens, a massive vessel larger than anything they had ever seen. Its sleek black surface contrasted against the cold stars, and its design was something out of a science fiction novel. The ship's structure seemed impossibly advanced, its edges curved and smooth, while its surface glinted with an almost metallic sheen. The team's excitement quickly turned to awe and a touch of fear. No one knew who or what had built this ship, but it was clear they had uncovered something far beyond human technology. The captain issued the order to approach the wreckage carefully. As the ship came into full view, the team realized the scale of their discovery. It was ancient. The ship was old, yet it held together in a way that defied its apparent age. Its markings were unlike anything seen on Earth, alien in every sense of the word, but strangely familiar to those who studied early human artifacts. The team spent hours scanning the ship from every angle and running simulations. They could not find any indication that the ship had ever belonged to a known alien race. Its origin remained a mystery. They tried calling out with every communication method they had available, but there was no response. The ship's systems were silent. The only clue was the wreckage that seemed to tell a story of ancient battle and forgotten war, torn between galaxies, a silent monument to something long gone, but never truly forgotten. Within the wreckage, there were strange devices. Some still held energy signatures, others seemed to pulse with unknown power. What stood out the most was a massive section of the ship that appeared to be a central command center, untouched by time and space, its walls lined with symbols etched in a language unlike any that Earth's top linguists had encountered. There were no obvious signs of life, but a subtle hum in the background suggested that some part of the ship was still functional. The crew's excitement grew with each passing moment. They knew they were standing at the edge of something monumental. This wasn't just an ancient relic. It was evidence of a civilization far beyond anything humanity had ever dreamed of. As they began to explore further, they uncovered even more unexpected surprises, and their journey into the ship's secrets had only just begun. The implications of this find would soon ripple through the very core of Earth's understanding of its place in the universe. This discovery wasn't just a finding, it was a calling. As the weeks passed, the crew of the Endeavour grew more and more absorbed in the mystery of the alien warship. They had already sent a report to Earth, but the response was slow. High-level government officials were cautious, unsure of what they were dealing with. The team, however, continued their work undeterred, their excitement mounting with every new discovery. Each corner of the warship revealed new secrets, things they had never seen before. Alien technology sprawled across every inch of the ship's structure. The materials used in its construction were unlike anything Earth had ever produced, both durable and flexible in ways that defied human engineering. There were strange energy sources embedded deep within the ship, pulsating faintly with power, and sophisticated devices scattered throughout the wreckage. Some of these devices seemed to operate independently of the ship's main systems, suggesting they had been built for specific functions, and some even appeared to be able to reactivate. Yet the most puzzling discovery came when they accessed a vast data hub hidden deep within the ship's core. The data stored within was encrypted beyond anything Earth's top cryptographers had encountered. At first, the team believed it to be entirely foreign, but the more they worked with the files, the more they began to notice strange similarities. Some of the symbols appeared eerily familiar, bearing resemblance to the ancient scripts found in human ruins from long-forgotten civilizations. A few were even linked to early human writing systems. It was as if the ship's creators had been inspired by Earth's earliest cultures, or perhaps had somehow influenced them. The head researcher, Dr. Emily Walsh, found herself questioning everything she had believed about human history. She had spent her career studying the origins of Earth's ancient civilizations, but this discovery threatened to unravel her entire understanding of humanity's past. Could it be that Earth had once been part of something far greater than a small planet isolated in the galaxy? Were humans somehow connected to this alien species, or was this ship merely a relic of something much larger, something ancient? As the data began to unravel, small fragments of information came to light. The language, while still foreign, began to show patterns that hinted at a connection to Earth's early languages. There were names of planets, stars, and systems that were unknown to Earth's current knowledge. One name, in particular, stood out among the rest: Terra. While it was a term used for Earth in some ancient texts, it was also associated with a mysterious race of beings, known only in myths and legends across various civilizations. According to the fragments, Terra had once been a stronghold of an advanced intergalactic alliance, and this warship had been a guardian of sorts, tasked with protecting the homeworld from unknown dangers. The discovery stunned Dr. Walsh and her team. They were not just uncovering an alien warship, they were potentially uncovering humanity's lost legacy. The possibility that Earth had once been a part of an intergalactic society, and that this ship had once stood as its protector, was too much to ignore. But the questions only multiplied. Who had built the ship? Why had it been abandoned? And why was Earth left behind, seemingly forgotten by the rest of the galaxy? In the days that followed, the researchers worked tirelessly to decode more of the ship's data, eager to unlock the rest of the mystery. But as they delved deeper into the ship's secrets, they began to realize that this discovery was only the beginning. There were whispers in the data about wars that spanned the galaxy, about ancient powers that had clashed in the stars, and about Earth's pivotal role in all of it. The more they uncovered, the more they understood that their mission was far more significant than they could have ever imagined. This was not just a discovery about an alien warship. It was the key to humanity's forgotten past, and perhaps its future in the stars. As the weeks passed, the team continued their work on the alien warship, but despite their best efforts, the full scope of the ship's secrets remained out of reach. Dr. Emily Walsh and her colleagues were making slow but steady progress, unlocking encrypted files and uncovering strange patterns in the data. It was a frustrating process, but one that held the promise of incredible revelations. One day, as Dr. Walsh worked late into the night, a breakthrough occurred. She was studying the series of strange symbols when a portion of the encrypted data suddenly decrypted itself. It was subtle at first, just a few fragments of text, but it was enough to get her attention. The message that appeared was like nothing she had ever seen before. The language was alien, yet there was something about it that felt oddly familiar, like a distant echo of something she had read in ancient texts. It wasn't a language she could immediately recognize, but she could make out a few words that were similar to early human dialects, especially those from ancient civilizations. Her pulse quickened as she realized that these symbols were not just random or meaningless. They were a message, and it was directed at Earth. Excited and nervous, Dr. Walsh shared the discovery with the rest of the team. They worked through the night to decrypt the message, using every tool at their disposal. As they pieced it together, the message began to make sense. It was a warning, a message from the creators of the warship, sent long ago to Earth, hidden within the ship's core, waiting to be uncovered. The contents of the message were chilling. The message revealed that Earth was once part of an ancient galactic alliance, a coalition of civilizations that spanned the stars. This alliance had fought against a terrifying enemy, an aggressive and powerful species that sought to dominate the galaxy. The warship, the one the Endeavour crew had discovered, had been a key part of this defensive effort. It had been sent to Earth millennia ago to protect humanity and its allies from the alien threat. The message was clear. Earth had been chosen for a reason. Its position in the galaxy was strategic, and its involvement in the Alliance was vital to the success of the war. But something had gone wrong. The message revealed that the warship's creators had been forced to abandon their efforts, and the warship had been left behind as a final safeguard. The implications of the message were staggering. The crew was not just dealing with an ancient alien warship. They were uncovering the hidden history of their own species. For centuries, humanity had believed it was a small and insignificant part of the galaxy, isolated from the grand struggles of the universe. But this discovery revealed that Earth had once been at the center of a galactic conflict, a pivotal player in a war that had shaped the fate of countless civilizations. The crew continued to dig deeper, uncovering more fragments of the message and connecting the dots between ancient human history and the events described in the transmission. The more they uncovered, the more they realized that this was not just about an alien warship. It was about humanity's forgotten legacy in the stars. Earth had been a crucial part of a galactic defense system, and the warship's message suggested that humanity's ancestors had played a key role in the galactic struggle. Dr. Walsh sat back in her chair, staring at the screen in disbelief. The warship had been sent to Earth as a protector, a guardian against the very same alien species that had once threatened to destroy everything. And now, centuries later, the message had resurfaced, revealing humanity's lost connection to the stars. The question that hung in the air was one that no one had an answer to yet. What had happened to the rest of the Alliance? Why had Earth been abandoned? And what did this mean for humanity's future in the galaxy? As the team continued their research, the sense of excitement and fear grew. They were on the brink of something monumental, something that could change the course of human history forever. The warship's message was just the beginning. The crew of the Endeavour had uncovered the first pieces of a much larger puzzle, one that would soon shake the very foundations of everything humanity thought it knew about its place in the universe. As the team continued to analyze the data from the warship, more fragments of the message came to light. Dr. Walsh and her colleagues worked tirelessly to decode the ancient transmission, piecing together a story that grew more incredible with each revelation. The warship's creators had not been invaders, as the team initially feared. Instead, they had been protectors, part of a vast galactic alliance formed to defend against a terrifying alien species, the Zorath. The Zorath were a merciless race that had ravaged countless worlds, consuming everything in their path and leaving nothing but destruction in their wake. Their motives were simple: conquest and annihilation of any species they deemed weak or unworthy. The warship, it seemed, had been sent to Earth as a safeguard, a last line of defense in the event the Zorath ever turned their attention to the planet. According to the fragments of the message, Earth had once been a member of the Alliance, a key player in a larger galactic struggle that spanned millennia. But as the war raged on, the Alliance began to fracture. The Zorath grew more powerful, their forces overwhelming even the might of the United Species. The warship's creators, knowing that Earth was vulnerable, had decided to leave behind a guardian, a ship capable of defending the planet from any threat. But something had gone wrong. The message hinted at a catastrophic event, one that had caused the collapse of the Alliance and the loss of contact between Earth and the rest of the galaxy. The warship had been left behind, a relic of a forgotten time, its purpose to protect Earth from the dangers that still lurked in the stars. But over the centuries, the message had been lost, the warship's systems gradually shutting down as its creators faded from history. Now, with the ship reactivated, humanity was faced with the reality that their planet had once been a crucial part of something far greater than they could have imagined. As Dr. Walsh processed the information, she felt a chill run down her spine. Earth was no longer just a small, isolated planet in the galaxy. It was a pivotal piece of a much larger cosmic puzzle. The question now was, why had Earth been abandoned by the Alliance, and what had happened to the other species who had once stood alongside humanity? Had they been wiped out by the Zorath, or had something else occurred to cause the collapse of the Alliance? The crew's curiosity turned to fear as they realized that the war was far from over. The Zoreth were still out there, and their forces had only grown stronger in the years since the Alliance's fall. The warship's creators had left behind a weapon, a tool to protect Earth, but there was no guarantee it would be enough. The more the team uncovered, the more they understood that Earth was on the verge of something far more dangerous than anyone had anticipated. A sense of urgency settled over the team as they scrambled to gather as much information as possible from the warship's systems. The AI had activated, but it was slow to respond, its data fragmented and incomplete. It spoke of a new threat, a shadowy figure who had once led the Zoreth forces, now risen again with the goal of finishing what the Zoreth had started so many years ago. The message warned that Earth was still in danger, and the only way to survive was to rejoin the Galactic Alliance, to stand united with the other species against the forces of darkness that now threatened the galaxy. Dr. Walsh felt the weight of this revelation on her shoulders. Earth had been chosen to play a role in a war that had been fought long before her time. The warship's purpose was clear, to protect Earth from an enemy that had once nearly destroyed it. But now, humanity had a choice to make. Would they join the Galactic Alliance once more, or would they stand alone, vulnerable to the same fate that had nearly wiped out their ancestors? The decision would determine the fate of Earth, and perhaps the future of the galaxy itself. The team looked to Dr. Walsh, the one who had led them to this moment. She knew that whatever decision they made would change everything. The history of Earth had been rewritten in an instant, and the fate of humanity now lay in the hands of those who would dare to face the darkness. The weight of the discovery began to settle over Dr. Walsh and her team as they processed the full implications of what they had uncovered. The warship's message had revealed far more than they had anticipated. Earth had once been part of a grand galactic alliance, a protectorate tasked with defending the galaxy from the Zoreth, a race of invaders that had nearly wiped out all opposition. The warship, which had been left behind as a guardian, was now the only thing standing between Earth and the same fate that had befallen so many other civilizations. As they pieced together more information from the ship's systems, the crew began to understand just how advanced the technology they had uncovered truly was. The warship's AI had been dormant for millennia, but it had slowly begun to reactivate, revealing fragments of its once vast knowledge. Its voice, when it spoke, was calm and eerily intelligent. It had been programmed by the ancient creators to guide and protect Earth should the need arise. The ship's systems hummed to life as the AI continued to relay critical information, but it was clear that much of the data was corrupted, lost over time. The crew was frustrated. They had only scratched the surface of what the warship could offer, but they were beginning to understand the enormity of the task ahead. The AI's instructions were clear. Earth must prepare itself for the inevitable return of the Zoreth. The Alliance had failed, but Earth had not been entirely forgotten. The warship was proof of that. The AI hinted at humanity's forgotten connection to the stars, to a time when Earth had been part of something greater than itself. The question now was whether humanity was ready for what was coming. Dr. Walsh knew that the planet had never faced anything like this before. The warship was a relic of a long-forgotten era, but the threats it had once defended against were far from gone. The Zoreth, it seemed, were still out there, and their forces were only growing stronger. The warship's message made it clear that Earth would need to prepare to fight for its survival. But what if humanity was not ready? The AI's voice echoed in Dr. Walsh's mind as she considered the gravity of their situation. The ship's creators had been watching over Earth for millennia, and they had left behind this warship as a safeguard. But the AI was not just a passive observer. It was a guide, a mentor that had been waiting for this moment. It had seen the rise and fall of civilizations, and it knew what Earth would need to stand against the coming storm. Dr. Walsh stood in front of the warship's control panel, her hands shaking as she worked to activate the ship's full systems. She had never felt more alone in her life. The fate of humanity was now in their hands, and the stakes were higher than anything she had ever imagined. The warship's AI had warned them that time was running out. The Zoreth were preparing to launch their final assault on Earth, and if they were not ready, there would be no second chance. The rest of the crew gathered around, their faces filled with a mixture of fear and determination. They all knew the gravity of the situation. Earth was at a crossroads. Either they would rise to the challenge and join the Galactic Alliance once again, or they would fall into the darkness, left to fend for themselves. The warship's systems were ancient, but they were still functional. The technology contained within its walls was enough to give humanity a fighting chance. The crew looked to Dr. Walsh for guidance. She could feel the weight of their expectations bearing down on her, but there was no time for hesitation. She had spent her entire life studying the past, but now she realized the future of humanity depended on what they did next. The galaxy was vast, and the threats were real. But Earth had always been a planet of survivors. Perhaps, just perhaps, they could rise to the occasion once more. As she activated the warship's main command center, Dr. Walsh knew that the journey ahead would not be easy. But one thing was certain: the era of Earth's isolation was over. The stars were calling, and humanity's fate was no longer in its own hands. The galaxy was waiting, and it was time for Earth to stand tall among the stars once again. The warship's systems roared to life as Dr. Walsh initiated the activation sequence. The hum of ancient machinery echoed through the ship, its dormant power now beginning to stir. The AI's voice, calm and methodical, filled the room as it provided a list of tasks for the crew to follow. It was no longer a passive observer, but a guiding force, and the crew now had the distinct sense that they were no longer alone in the ship. They had a purpose, and that purpose was to prepare Earth for what was coming. Dr. Walsh glanced at her team, their faces lit by the glow of the warship's holographic displays. There was no time for hesitation. The Zoreth were out there, and the warship had made it clear their invasion was imminent. Earth, isolated for so long, was about to be thrust back into the galactic fold, and it was a far more dangerous place than they had ever imagined. The warship's AI explained the necessity of reactivating an ancient communication network, one that had once linked the Alliance's forces across the galaxy. The crew had to establish contact with the surviving members of the Alliance, or Earth would face the Zoreth without any outside support. This network, the AI explained, had been severed when the Alliance collapsed, but remnants of it still existed. The first task was to locate those remnants and re-establish a connection. Earth had to reach out to the stars. The mission was clear, but the crew soon realized just how daunting it would be. The network was fragmented, scattered across the galaxy in isolated sectors that had not been contacted for millennia. The warship's systems were capable of scanning distant star systems, but it would take time to locate the key points of the Alliance's old network. There were still questions about what had become of the other species in the Alliance. Were they still out there? And if so, would they be willing to help Earth in the coming battle? Dr. Walsh and her team began the process of recalibrating the warship's communication systems, working long hours as the ship's AI guided them through each step. The crew was focused, but a creeping sense of unease lingered. The warship's message had been clear, but there were still gaps in the information. The Zoreth were an unknown quantity, and though the warship had fought them before, it had been too long since the Alliance had faced them. How much had the Zoreth changed in the millennia since? Despite the growing uncertainty, Dr. Walsh couldn't help but feel a sense of awe. This was history in the making. Earth was no longer a bystander in the universe. It was about to become an active player in the galactic theater. The decisions made in the coming days would shape the future of the planet and its place in the cosmos. As the days passed, the crew began to make progress. They were able to access fragments of the communication network, some of them still functional, though most were damaged beyond immediate repair. Each successful connection brought a glimmer of hope, but also more questions. Some of the messages they recovered spoke of the Zoreth's devastating power. Others described a fragmented alliance, with many species scattered or lost in the wake of the war. There were hints that the Zoreth had adapted, evolving new tactics and weapons that had taken the galaxy by surprise. Dr. Walsh felt the weight of the situation growing heavier with each passing hour. The AI had given them a fighting chance, but there were no guarantees. Earth had been isolated for so long, and its people were not prepared for the horrors of war on such a vast scale. They had no idea what they were up against. Still, there was no turning back. The warship's message had given Earth a second chance, and it was up to Dr. Walsh and her team to make the most of it. The stars had once been a realm of myth for humanity, but now they were within reach. And with that reach came a responsibility, one that would test the very soul of the human race. The battle for Earth was just beginning, and there was no turning back now. As the warship's systems hummed with power, the crew worked tirelessly to restore what they could of the galactic communication network. Days blurred into nights as they pieced together the broken fragments of the old Alliance's messages. With each successful connection, the weight of their mission grew heavier. The more they learned, the more they realized just how fragile Earth's position had become. The Zorath were not just an external threat. They were a dark, insidious force, and they had evolved. Dr. Walsh stood before the central control panel, her eyes scanning the data pouring in from the warship systems. The AI had provided crucial insights into the Zorath's tactics and weapons, but it was clear that humanity was still far behind. The warship, though powerful, was a relic of a time long past. Its technology was ancient, and the galaxy had moved on since the Alliance had fallen. The Zorath, meanwhile, had adapted to the changing tides of war. They had grown more organized, more ruthless. And Earth was still a backwater planet with no idea of the scale of the conflict they were about to face. But there was hope. The crew had managed to establish contact with a handful of surviving species from the old Alliance. Their responses were slow, scattered, but there was a glimmer of cooperation. One race, the Valkyrie, had offered to send reinforcements, though they warned that their forces were stretched thin. Another, the Talith, had provided valuable intel on the Zorath's movements. But despite these small victories, the message was clear. Earth would have to fight its own battle. No one could afford to fight this war for them. Earth had to stand on its own, or risk being wiped out. As Dr. Walsh sifted through the data, she couldn't shake the feeling that something was missing. The AI's knowledge of the Zorath was extensive, but it lacked a certain depth, as if there were things it wasn't telling them. The warship had been left behind to protect Earth, but why had the Alliance abandoned the planet in the first place? What had happened to the other members of the Alliance, and why had the war ended so abruptly? There were too many unanswered questions, and time was running out. Every moment they spent searching for answers brought them closer to the Zorath's inevitable attack. Her thoughts were interrupted when the AI's voice cut through the silence. "Dr. Walsh, we have detected an anomaly. It is a Zorath fleet, inbound." The words hit like a physical blow. The team froze, all eyes turning to the warship's sensors as the image of the fleet appeared on the holographic display. It was vast, larger than anything they had imagined. Hundreds of ships, each one bristling with weapons and dark energy. The Zorath had found them. Earth's defenses, no matter how much they had been upgraded by the warship, were no match for such an overwhelming force. The crew scrambled into action, their earlier uncertainties replaced with urgency. There was no more time for questions or hesitation. They had to fight. They had to defend their home, not just for themselves, but for everything humanity stood for. The AI continued to process the incoming data, its voice steady. "The fleet will reach Earth within 72 hours. Your preparations must be accelerated. The warship is ready, but its full power has yet to be unlocked. Begin activating the secondary defense systems." Dr. Walsh knew that they were nowhere near ready. The warship was powerful, but it had been dormant for too long. Its systems were still unreliable, and the crew was inexperienced in using its advanced technology. But there was no other choice. Earth's survival now hinged on their ability to adapt quickly, to master the ship's systems, and use them to their fullest potential. "Move out," Dr. Walsh ordered, her voice cutting through the panic. "We have less than 3 days to prepare. We don't have time to second-guess ourselves. We fight now, or we lose everything." The team went to work, setting up battle simulations, activating weapon systems, and strategizing their next steps. The warship was vast, its halls filled with ancient technology, and every moment spent learning its intricacies brought them closer to unlocking its true potential. But despite the frantic pace, there was still a sense of unease hanging over them. The Zorath were coming, and they had no idea what kind of forces Earth would be facing. Dr. Walsh stood by the warship's command center, staring at the vast fleet approaching Earth on the display. This was it, the moment they had been preparing for. The galaxy had turned its back on Earth, leaving them to fight alone. But humanity had survived for millennia in the face of adversity, and now it would do so again. The warship, once a relic of a forgotten era, was their last hope. Earth's fate was now in their hands. It was time to fight back. The countdown to the Zorath fleet's arrival ticked away relentlessly. The crew of the Endeavor was working at breakneck speed, every second crucial as they struggled to prepare the warship for battle. Dr. Walsh, her mind racing with the enormity of what they were about to face, paced the control room, watching the warship's systems power up. They had unlocked more of the ship's defenses, and though they were still far from fully operational, it was their only chance. The warship's weapons, though ancient, were formidable. The AI had confirmed that they could be activated to defend Earth, but the process was complex and required precise coordination. "Dr. Walsh, the fleet is now within range," came the voice of Lieutenant Marcus Reed, his face tense as he worked on the communications console. "We don't have much time left. The Zorath are almost here." She nodded, steeling herself. There was no turning back. The crew had come together in ways she hadn't thought possible. Despite the odds, they were united, all of them driven by the same purpose, to protect their home. But Dr. Walsh couldn't shake the thought that they were facing an enemy unlike any humanity had ever encountered. The Zorath were relentless, and their forces were far superior in both size and technology. The warship's capabilities, though powerful, were limited. It was no longer a simple fight for survival. It was humanity's chance to prove it belonged in the galactic community. The warship's AI continued to relay information, offering tactical advice and guiding them as they prepared the ship's defenses. The crew worked together in synchronized chaos, each person focused on their assigned task. They tested weapon systems, calibrated shields, and synchronized the warship's defenses with Earth's planetary systems. But even as the warship's systems powered up, there was a gnawing sense of unease. The Zorath's fleet was formidable. Earth had no idea how much they had evolved in the centuries, since the warship's creators had abandoned the galaxy. "They've arrived," Marcus said, his voice sharp with urgency. "The first wave is entering Earth's atmosphere." A massive hologram appeared in front of them, showing the Zorath fleet's ships descending toward Earth, dark and menacing. Their ship designs were grotesque, sharp-edged, and seemingly built for destruction. The size of their ships alone was enough to make the crew's blood run cold. They were unlike anything the team had ever encountered. The fleet wasn't just here to invade. They were here to annihilate. Dr. Walsh turned to face her team, feeling the weight of their eyes on her. "We can do this," she said, more to herself than to anyone else. "Earth isn't going down without a fight. We're not going to let them take us." The crew nodded, their resolve hardening. It was time to act. "Activate the main cannons," Dr. Walsh ordered. "Target their lead ships. Fire on my command." The warship's weapons came online with a deep, rumbling thrum, and the crew's tension reached its peak as they waited for the inevitable first strike. The ship's targeting systems whirred, the AI calculating trajectories with incredible precision. The crew's hearts raced. Every eye was fixed on the holographic map of Earth's sky, where the Zorath ships were entering the atmosphere. "Firing in 3, 2, 1, Dr. Walsh said, her voice unwavering. The Endeavor's weapons unleashed a devastating barrage of energy beams, lighting up the dark expanse of space. The first wave of Zoreth ships were caught off guard, but the enemy quickly retaliated. Massive explosions shook the warship as energy blasts hit its hull. The Endeavor shook violently, but it held firm. The crew scrambled to maintain control, counteracting the Zoreth's assault. Shields flared, absorbing the worst of the damage, but the ship was not invulnerable. Direct hit to the aft shields. Lieutenant Reed shouted, "We're taking damage. We need to reinforce the defenses." Dr. Walsh barked orders, urging her crew to push harder. There was no time for mistakes now. Earth's survival rested on their ability to hold the line. The battle raged on, with the Endeavor fighting back against the overwhelming Zoreth fleet. The warship's cannons fired with relentless power, cutting down Zoreth ships one after another, but their numbers seemed endless. As more waves of Zoreth vessels entered Earth's orbit, the crew realized that this was not just a battle for survival, it was a battle for humanity's place in the galaxy. The warship's AI offered a chilling update. Multiple Zoreth reinforcements incoming. The fleet is growing stronger. You have approximately 48 hours before they overwhelm your defenses. Time was running out. Dr. Walsh stared at the hologram of Earth, now being engulfed in a war that had been brewing for centuries. This was no longer just about Earth's defense. It was about reclaiming humanity's place in the stars. Earth had been forgotten, but not anymore. They would fight to the end.